They have the best drive-through service of anybody in the world. They got it down. They got it packed. You do not wait very long. During COVID, they really stepped it up. Nobody matches Chick-fil-A. Patience. So, the first thing, most of you know, but if you're a visitor, you can fill it back to your bulletin. Waiting on God, verse 1, Genesis 16:1. Now Sarah, Abraham's wife, bare him no children. And he had a handmaid. You know, you read the story. An Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Now, we talked about this last week. What did God tell Abraham? Your seed's going to be as the sand of the sea. And now they're getting up in years. They're getting 89 years old. Most of you ladies would cringe if you knew you were going to have a baby at 90 years old. Am I right? Well, they didn't want to wait on the Lord. She started conjuring. She started thinking. But God's timetable is His and His alone. So Abraham and Sarah, I know they have it Sarai in here when they translated it from the original scriptures, and that's just what they did in 1611. It's just like us, we say words different. Like the cartoon I saw yesterday, it said, "Ma'am, your husband's funeral is down south, and we know he's dead, but I just want to let you know that they're going to say dead," and that's how they talk down south. So they just wrote it Sarai. It's the same thing. So let's look at a couple of things about this. Abraham and Sarah, like I said, they had been waiting on the Lord. They've been waiting 10 years for this promised seed. David Livingston, I told you before. Everybody remember how long he was in Africa before one person got saved? 5 years. Now, if you were doing something and trying to get people saved, I don't know if I could wait 5 years. Could you wait 5 years? Now, obviously, once one person gets saved, it makes a difference. But David Livingston, 5 years as a missionary before one person got saved. That's a long time to wait, 10 years. Look at this next thing. So there's several things under here. We are to walk by faith. For we walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. It's not as easy walking by faith, but it is easy walking by faith. You say, okay, that's a paradox. And that's not two doctors. It's not easy sometimes walking by faith, but when you're in tune with the Lord, I should have brought that thing out here that Brother Decker made, or Larry Robertson made. Oh, pray for Kevin Robertson, too. He's in the hospital. Well, I've sent the messages out. Did he get to a room yet, Sylvia? Do you know?
I tried calling him last night. I didn't get him.
He was in the ICU for a day. He had 3 mini strokes. So far, the only side effects is some vision in the eye. So pray for Kevin. I've sent you that message out. But here we are to walk by faith. If we're in tune with the Lord, well, then we know we should walk by faith. Now, is it always easy? No. But we walk by faith. So look at under several things under this one. Walk by faith includes a willingness. Here's the problem: to wait on the Lord. Being willing to wait. Wait patiently. Here it is, November. What's going to happen in a few weeks on December 25th? Kids are going to go to bed that night. They're going to wait impatiently to go to bed, won't be able to go to sleep because they can't wait to see what kind of presents they get the next day. Maybe some of you do the same thing. You go to bed, you won't know what kind of presents you're going to get the next day. But to wait patiently on the Lord, I said it's God's timetable. Does God always work fast? All right, let me ask a question. Does He always work slow? Does He always work on time? Yeah. Those clocks. I told Robert, I was so tired last night, I laid down on the bed. Like he was in the kitchen, I laid down on the bed. Didn't even take my jeans off. I was so tired, laid down, and I even forgot to tell Alexa to set the alarm. Sunday morning, we usually get up at 6:30. I woke up at 6:58, no problem. We had plenty of time. Rebecca had arrived me because she couldn't drive a car, but we had plenty of time. But I was so tired, we usually set that thing every night. Robert said, I don't set an alarm anymore. I said, I got so many things to do, we have to set alarms. Maybe someday. Hey, Lord, maybe we won't have alarms in heaven. That might be a good thing. So, waiting on the Lord, the timetable, you know, faith includes waiting. Look at the next one. Walking by faith is being concerned only with the glory of God. We could spend the rest of the time, like Dave, you know, we've never enough time for Sunday school. There's so much, if you guys had the books, the teacher's guide, and if you got into it so much, it's hard getting everything in. One of our professors, we had to do a paper, said 15,000 to 1,500 words. And you say, well, you start researching and doing everything, and it's hard to keep it under 1,500 words if you're doing it incorrectly. But here it is, here we are, waiting on the Lord, and then we're doing it to the glory of God. Everything we should do is to be to the glory of God. Now, Abraham said, okay, Lord, I'll go. Noah said, okay, Lord, I'll build this ark. You know, God led these people, and they did that, but they get weary. Would you get weary for 40 years in the wilderness? How many of you eat the same thing every day? Anybody? I work with a guy, Mike knows him, Dick. For 20 years, his wife, 5 days a week, made him bacon and eggs. I like bacon and eggs. Give me some bacon and eggs, and I'll be happy. But I don't want it 5 days a week for 20 years. Dick was a creature of habit. He went to Taco John's on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for lunch. His truck pulled in. They said, Dick's here, 2 tacos and a Coke. Never anything different. He always went somewhere else on Friday to do something different. I always liked to eat manna for 40 years. Now, like Melody said, we were talking about that last week. She said that was the only whole good processed food that on the whole world was manna. It was the best nourishing food because God gave it to them. They had it fried. They had it boiled. They had a microwave. To walk by faith also means acting on the authority of God's word. Is this the only authority? Remember I said last week, people said, well, the Bible was written by men, so I can't trust it. So with every other book you have, every book that you have was written by a human being. Unless they're doing AI now, but let's leave that out. But all the books you read, all these encyclopedias, the dictionaries, who said that big means big? Who decided? Adam had named all the animals. Who decided all these scientific names? And it has to be that way. Who knows? But the only authority we have is the Word of God. And walking by faith will result in joy and peace in our life. That's the only thing that matters. Peace. The peace of God that passes what? All understanding. The world doesn't know peace. You don't believe me? What's going on in the world? How many of you would have thought when you were a child, or 40 years ago, that you would hear of all these people attacking government agents? Oh, once in a while, but not like they do now. There's no authority, there's no regard for police. We were told, my mom, you probably watched that show, Cops. And I know it's a different era now. I can remember, we lived on Swan Avenue. I went to Adams School, and there was the hippies and everything were doing all kinds of stuff in the early 60s. And I remember my mom pointed her finger at me and said, if I ever hear you call them a cop, you're going to get your face slapped and you're going to eat soap. They're police officers, and you're going to respect them. Too bad some parents don't get that now. But we were never allowed to call them cops. That was out. So while waiting on God, Abraham and Sarah got sidetracked from their walk of faith. I should have put that word on there. It's easy to get sidetracked. How many of you might go out that door to go get something and you might forget what you went for? Raise your hand if you'll admit it. I told you it's a scientific fact. They've proven it scientific. There's something in the doorway because the environment changes. There's something that causes you to forget. You go through a doorway and there's something that does, I don't know, they say they've proven it scientifically that the door is the cause of it. So now you got something to blame on and not your age. So next, scheming around God, verses 2 through 4. Here's God's plan, right here wrapped up. And then Sarah comes along, and she has a different plan. Now sometimes things change and they are different. That's how we have so many different kinds of foods. People change recipes. They'll add something to this. They say that chocolate chip cookies were invented by accident. They accidentally spilled chocolate chips into the cookie dough. That's a story I've read. They say there's an accident. French dips up in Buffalo, they said those were invented accidentally. The guy was fixing a man's sandwich who came in late, and he dropped it in the broth. And the guy said, "I'll go ahead and eat it." Lo and behold, the French dip. A good sandwich, made right. It's okay to change some things, but to change God's plan. I can give all kinds of instances. Most of you here, many of you here have been Christians for a long time, and you let the Lord lead you to the person He wants you to be with. Not every day is not going to be perfect. There's going to be arguments, there's going to be disagreements when the honeymoon's over. When we taught the teens downstairs for several years, we told those teens, ask God who you want to marry, or who He wants you to marry. Ask God what kind of career He wants you to have. Don't just go on a pegboard, put a bunch of pictures there, throw a dart at it, well, I'll marry that guy or that girl. No. Tell me, is it better to get the Lord's guidance? His plans are a lot better. He knows the future. So they started scheming. She knew that she was getting up in age and she was unable to bear children, or so she thought. She began second-guessing God. Then what about Abraham's consent? Now here's Abraham. He's the man of the household, and back then, even today, things are different in different cultures. The father was the head of the household. But then in the Jewish society, if the dad died, the eldest son became the head of the household. And back then, they were nomadic people. They lived in tents. They didn't build these houses. So let's say it was Ulysses' dad had this tent. And then when Ulysses decided to get married, they would start adding on to Dad's tent and move in with him. I'm not going to even ask him if that would work out. My mom and my wife, one of them would have been dead. A mother-in-law, a mother never, no woman is good enough for a mother for her son. It's never good enough. Yeah, I heard Loretta say, "So Karen, you're good enough." I agree. There's exceptions, but a lot of times there's arguments. But the family would move in, and then they'd stay there, and then when kids come along with them, they'd add on to the tent again. That's how they lived. They didn't go out and get their own place. I don't know how they afford their places now anyway, but that's a different story. But Abraham, he was the head, and he consented to this thing. It may have been Sarah's plan, but he agreed to do it. How long does it take when you have a couple people, sip the water, a couple people decide they're going to cause melee? How long does it take to get a big group? Not long. One year when IU won back then with the basketball, they won the division championship, whatever it was. I don't know if they won the Big Ten, whatever it was, their area. Randy was downtown, just down there with the crowds, and he heard somebody yell, "Tear gas." They were walking towards Dunn, and a bunch of students had already they tore the plywood off of the windows on the store window that had been broken on Dunn. They had it in the middle of this intersection of Kirkwood and Dunn and set it on fire. So Randy's walking along, he hears the word, 2 words I guess, tear gas. They go into stores. Everybody started heading into stores. I guarantee you it didn't take long. It didn't take long for melee to happen, to get a whole group, and they won. That was the thing. Remember when IU won the championship in '87 in Syracuse? They were setting cars on fire and everything else. They did that here one year. They said they turned a Volkswagen over one. championship. Doesn't take long to get a group say, hey, let's tear this place apart. Didn't take long. Well, here's Sarah. Abraham says, okay, I'll go along with the plan. But Abraham is not without blame, as I said, in his departure from the walk of faith. It may have been Sarah's plan, but he agreed to it. Note that they were unwilling to wait on God. Here's that word again, wait. But I don't want to wait in line. Wait. When Becky worked at the daycare at the hospital years ago, she had the 1 and 2-year-olds, mainly 2-year-olds. But they had to line up going down the hall. Everybody, they didn't want to wait. Everybody wanted to be the locomotive. Everybody wanted to be the front. And Becky said one day after a couple of days, she said, you know what? I need a caboose. I need somebody that's going to be the caboose. And then they all wanted to be the caboose. No patience. Then everybody wanted to be the caboose, and you can't be both. But she just thought, hey, I'm going to settle this and get somebody else involved. But they both acted to please themselves. Rather, what did we say a while ago we're here for? To glorify God. They both acted to please themselves instead of glorifying God. Now, in our lives, we do that too sometimes. We have to keep our eyes on the Lord. You say, I know the answer. I got a better answer. I'm going to do it my way, Lord. So they didn't obey the Word of God and comply, and they certainly didn't bring peace and joy to their lives. Okay, obedience. I remember how to spell obedience from a video in 3rd grade. I don't remember what I ate yesterday, but I remember this video, Jiminy Cricket. Obedience. I always was able to spell obedience. Remember that? We said something to one of the grandkids a while ago. How many remember a rat in Tom's house might eat Tom's ice cream? Everybody have to do that? That's how we were told how to spell arithmetic. A rat in Tom's house might eat Tom's ice cream. You'll go home and write that down. See? That's how we were told. I never forgot how to spell arithmetic. All right, let's go a little farther. Fighting with each other, verses 4 through 6. Siblings do this when they're awake. Siblings fight with each other. They get into arguments. They get into fights. As our kids grew up, on Christmas, we tried to get them both. Many times we got them the same gifts. And if it was the same thing, because then one couldn't say, well, he got this and this, I didn't get this. And we'd wrap them, and like the year we got them paint guns. We wrapped the paintballs, we wrapped the guns, we wrapped the mask, and we gave them each the same thing at the same time so they could open up, so one couldn't say, you love him more than you love me. Imagine being in Jesus' family. Imagine being his siblings. Mom loves you better. You never do anything wrong. You're the favorite one because you never do what Jesus didn't. So we try to wrap their presents the same. When we brought Randy home from the hospital, we let Ryan hold him first. We walked in the house. Ryan was sitting in the rocking chair. We put that little baby into his hands, and so he sat there and rocked him. And we thought, okay, we'll let Ryan hold him, get used to him for a while and stuff. Becky babysat before we had Randy, and 2 days later, Ryan said, when's he going home? We got rid of all the other kids we babysat. When's he going home? Well, he's still there, you know. So, fighting with each other. This is the natural result of following the wisdom of the world instead of God. Let me ask you a question, seriously though. Does the world have some good wisdom? Some. Occasionally. But it's not God's wisdom. I was told by people when I was called to preach, you don't want to do that. Butch, my stepdad, even said, why don't you go to St. Louis University for a year and then go to Bible college? I said, I don't want to do that. he said, well, you can live here at home, you can stay here for a year, take some classes. I said, I don't want to do that. I said, the Lord wants me to preach. I had kids at school. He said, why do you want to do something like that? Why do you want to go to Bible college? Of course, these kids were what? They weren't Christians. They didn't understand. And that goes for anything in your life. If God puts you in a certain place, He wants you there. We've talked about this. If you are in a certain place, whether it's a good or bad happening right now, are you there because of God's will? Is He letting you be there? Of course He is. Do we like having the things happen? No. But if we are faith. So, James chapter 4, verse 1. I got a 1 there. It's hard to say 1 James, but it's James chapter 4. From whence come wars and fightings among you? And a question mark. And it says, come they not hence, even of our lusts? But listen to this, that war in our members. We have God on this side telling us, I want you to do this. I want you to marry this person. I want you to move here. I want you to take this job. You have the devil on this side. I want you to go the other way. I don't want you to serve the Lord. I've got something you can do. Money's more important. Instead of serving the Lord, I'll give you this, I'll give you this, I'll give you this. Of all fights, family fights are the most painful and the most difficult ones to settle. I'm already hearing stories about what it may be like this year with everything that's happened around the Thanksgiving tables when you have two political sides. I know some people who said they've agreed at Thanksgiving not to talk politics. Because it's not like it used to be. Used to, we could agree with each other. Now people think that fighting is okay. Like I said, 40% last week or Wednesday, whatever, 40% of liberal college students they talked to said it's okay if somebody has a different political view from you. 40% said it's okay to use violence. Why? How many fought with your siblings? Raise your hand. How many of your siblings always started? I figured it's different. My brother did start most of the time. He laughed about it when he got in trouble. And you don't believe me? You can ask him. Not now, he's right. But all fights, family fights, they're difficult. There are families that get in fights and they don't even talk to each other for 112 years. I'm never going to talk to you again. 10 years later, you're asking, what was the fight about? I don't know. I don't remember. Well, I'm not talking to them. I'm done with them. I guess we'd be in trouble if God did that to us, because we've all failed God. Look at this. It didn't take long before Sarah's plan to produce fruit. Hagar became pregnant and Sarah became bitter. Well, I got a plan. I'm going to do this. And you get mad about it. Now, every plan doesn't work out. I've asked the question before, if you've cooked, you've burnt something. If you've cooked anything much, you've messed it up. In the restaurants, we had to set timers. You had so many things going on. You had so many people, so many meals. And we had to, when I worked at that prime rib place, along with serving the food, the prime rib steaks, all the other stuff we had to keep biscuits. We had these sweet biscuits, drop biscuits, and then they gave you honey with them. You could have all the biscuits you wanted, because if you go away full, you're going to come back to that restaurant. But not only did we have to serve the people doing all this, we had to keep the oven full of biscuits because people were eating them right and left and right. It was stressful. It's a stressful job keeping everything, but there were times we burnt things. I burnt things. There are times stuff stick to the bottom. You turn the pot up too high and things stick. We've all done that. If you've cooked much, you've messed something up. But when you messed it up, did you quit cooking? Did you stop? No. You take it, you get rid of it, and you start over. We've all done it. Maybe it's sewing. My wife hasn't done as much sewing lately, but for years she did a lot of sewing. And that machine would go cattywampus, or a needle would break, or she'd look at something and the seam wasn't straight, and she said, I've got to rip this seam out and start over. Instead of throwing the dress away, you just rip it out and you start over. We have to do that sometimes. But Sarah had a plan, and then she got mad at her own plan. It's like you saying, I'm going to have chicken and dumplings for supper, and then you fix them and then get mad because you fixed them. I know now you're going to go home and make chicken and dumplings. Let me have some if you do. We were talking with Becky's sister about that last night. So it didn't take long, like I said, for Sarah's plan to turn on her. She got bitter. Look at this last slide here. Failure to deal with problems properly always leads to greater problems. It always leads to greater problems. You got to fix it while it's there. If the trash can's leaking, get it out before it leaks more. If you got a water leak, fix it before it does damage. You get the picture. But here's Sarah. I've got a better plan because I can't get pregnant, so I'm going to let somebody else do this. We're going to go around the other way. We're going to go on the outside. We're going to go on the loop. Many cities now have loops around their cities, interstate loops, so you don't have to go through the city and go through all the traffic. And Atlanta is one of the worst ones. It's terrible around Atlanta, even on the loop, because the traffic is so heavy. I've been in New York City during rush hour. The traffic is a mess. St. Louis has a big loop. Phoenix has a big loop. Most cities now have a big loop going around it so you can avoid some of the traffic. But you're avoiding the mess. But Sarah said, I'm going to go around this loop. I'm going to go around 465 instead of taking 65, and I'm going to do it my way. Here it goes. Faith is here. SELF is here. We can't let them intertwine. Faith can't be intertwined with self. Well, that's what Sarah's doing. She's doing it like that. So, what they should have done was to build an altar, confess their sin before God, and forgiveness. Now, you all came in here this morning, and we have an altar, we have an auditorium, and we have what some people call it a sanctuary. We have pews, we have a warm place. It was nice last night. I asked Frances if she turned her furnace on last night. She said, oh yes. I would have burnt up if my furnace would have been on last night. But we have this altar. We can come in here. You're free to walk in here anytime. Get to come to the altar and pray. You're free to do whatever you want. But back then, when they wanted to go before the Lord, they had to build an altar. You had to take the rocks. You had to build an altar, then go to it and pray. Well, aren't you glad you don't have to do that? How many would not show up this morning if you had to come in and help build the altar? Don't raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. Now, we got a lot of rocks in Indiana. Years ago, we had a meeting here, with the sheriff and the neighborhood watch meeting. He said, here in Indiana, we give people ammunition to break into our houses. He said, outside our homes, all kinds of boulders and rocks and limestone. He said, we give them ammunition to break in the windows. Most places, they don't do that. But they had their own way of dealing with the problem. Look at this. Sarah's solution, blame her husband and mistreat her servant, verse 5. How easy is it to blame somebody else for something? If you read the Family Circus, if you've read the Family Circus, one of the kids' footprints are all over the whole house, everything, and Mom asked who did it. Said, not me. Not me. Dennis the Menace the other day, he was out in the mud puddle. He was totally naked. He told his mom, he said, you told me not to get my clothes dirty. And the other one, Dennis the Menace, his friend and him were helping Mr. Wilson plant seeds in the garden, and they had those, those little pictures that they were putting the pictures there. And Dennis said that's so the rabbits will know what they're eating. I don't know how they come up with these things. So she starts blaming her husband. Abraham's solution, to give in to his wife. Whatever it takes to make you happy, dear. I've heard a lot of men, I've said it. In every argument, I get the final words. Yes, dear. I've heard men say it all the year, and women may say it the same way. He gave in and said, okay, let's do it. Why is it so easy to do wrong? Why is it so easy for us as human beings? I know it's because we're sinners, but why is it so easy for us to go the wrong way? The song says it's never right to do wrong to do right. Did you get that? It's never right to do wrong to do right. If they would have looked at this, maybe they wouldn't have done what they did. Real quickly, we'll finish. Hagar's solution, I'm going to run away. I'm going to run away. What was that thing Becky was reading last night? One of the comic books. She bought this little comic book at a sale the other day. Had a whole bunch of peanuts and all these other ones in it. It said something about, I'm going to take my problems and run away. And then it basically said, everybody's taking the problems. We're all running the same way. If you run away from your problem, when you come back, is it going to be gone? No. Hagar ran away. I didn't delete the whole thing. On our computers, we push delete. You can write a text message and then say, well, I don't really want to send that text message. And you hit the button and say, delete. You don't have to. But they couldn't do that then. So the last thing, the only answer for them was to go to the Lord, was to go to God. Faith. A simple word. You say it shouldn't be hard. Yes, it shouldn't be hard. But faith. 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 Faith is the evidence of things hoped for. Faith is, I can't think of the word, but evidence of things not seen. Somebody tell me the first part. I can't think of it. We'll get it. Hebrews 11:1. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen. I got it. Lord bless us. We're seeing Abraham and Sarah were progressing in his life, in what happened, step by step by step by step. So we're seeing that things don't always go perfect. Our lives don't always go perfect. We have problems on our jobs. We have problems with work, people we work with family members. We have problems with cars. We have problems with houses. We have problems with things. Our problems are problems, Lord, but we need to trust in you.